Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Brief Nerdity podcast. My name is Trent, and I will be your host for the evening. Joining me for the first time for her amazing grand debut is my good friend Annie. How are you?
Woohoo! I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, Annie and I have been talking and discovered we have an immense shared love of Star Trek and decided
Yep.
that it would be something fun to talk about on the podcast. And so we thought we would give it a go for just the two of us to chat about Star Trek, mainly probably Star Trek Discovery at first, and then we'll go from
hmm
there.
Yeah, we can branch out if it feels good.
Yeah, so we actually, and if it goes well, and I'm assuming it will, because I mean
Yeah.
we're awesome, and
How
you're
can it
awesome.
not, right? Us, Star Trek. This can only
Exactly.
go well.
So we're thinking about turning this into a regular segment outside of the normal Monday night podcasts. So maybe like Sundays after the Star Trek episode, or who knows when.
hmm
But so keep in touch with social media and check and make sure you follow our feed on iTunes so that you get all the new episodes as they come in. But welcome to the first episode of, I think we're calling it Brief Trek for
Brief
now.
trek.
That is our current uh, name in the works. So I guess we just got to jump right into last night's episode.
Yeah.
Holy
Holy
crap!
crap. I mean, seriously. I mean, I keep watching Discovery and I'm like, okay, this episode, like, it can't get any better than last week's. You know, I have low expectations or whatever. And then they just blow me out of the water.
Seriously,
Dude,
like it
it's
just keeps
so
getting more
unexpected.
and more intense, and like the
Ex-
acting is just so good.
It's phenomenal. I mean, gosh, and so many actors that I had never heard of, actresses that I had never really heard of, but that I hope we see in other things beyond Star Trek just because the quality is so amazing.
Yes, like Tilly can be in everything from
Oh,
forever until the
yes.
end of time.
Oh my gosh, so many good
She's my
lines
new
last
favorite.
week, so many good lines this week. Just amazing.
What was the best one from last week that we were talking about?
The one where she's like, "All right, we ready to like blow these assholes out of the water?" And then she's
Yes.
like, "Oh, too much."
Sorry, too much.
Yeah, and then Lorca's like, "Not here, it's okay."
Oh
But
man.
I love that even though she's kind of confronted with this whole mirror universe situation, she still manages to be herself, which I really like because I feel like that's going to come up more and more as we kind of move into like deeper into the mirror universe.
Yeah.
Who are you really? Are you seeing glimpses of people from the prime universe into kind of dragging their mirror selves into and kind of incorporating those pieces into their own personalities.
Yes.
um it's going to get interesting up in Discovery.
I'm stoked. And one of the favorite things that I like about the mirror episodes is that, it's kind of like that Star Trek Nemesis question is like, what about you is you? And if you were in different circumstances, how different would you be?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's Firefly. There's an episode where they're talking about people under pressure, and I think it's Shepherd Book who says you don't really know a person until you see them like cornered. Like, how will they act under pressure? How will they
Oh
act
yeah.
in like a deathly circumstance or a very significant, like serious circumstance? And I like that because we're kind of getting to see the people on the Discovery how they are under pressure and how they are in these intense circumstances. And I'll be the first to admit when they're like, "Yeah, Captain Killy," I'm like, "Oh man, this is gonna go so bad. Like she's gonna trip all over herself."
Oh
And
man.
that first transmission, just going back to not this past episode, but the episode before, I was like, "Oh gosh, this is awkward." Like, I'm just kind of cringing watching her with this the audio only transmission to the Shenzhou,
Ugh.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, if this is how it's going to be, like they're never going to buy this. And then she totally like pulls it together and, is totally confident, whether that's just her own acting skills. Like, I mean, for character development, that's just incredible, right? That she has that inside of her,
Oh man.
just waiting to come out.
I cannot wait to see like seasons down the line, like how much she's grown and changed because of like this and like whatever else is coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I
Well, and
think,
because
oh,
well,
sorry, go ahead.
she's such a timid character in the very beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
she's so nervous when Burnham comes on the ship. oh, you're not the mutineer, right? Like, oh, I've only ever heard of one Michael, and that was the mutineer. God, I hope you're not her, you know. And she's so nervous and so awkward. And then we get to see her kind of blossom into that great line this week. Oh, well, if you spoke to me that way, I'd cut out your tongue and use it to lick my boots. Like, holy crap, where did that come from, Tilly? Like, oh my God.
Ah, so amazing. And I felt so bad for her this week when she thinks that Stamets is dead and that it was her fault.
Oh,
I was like,
there
oh
were
no.
real tears.
Like my heart hurts.
Yeah, well, because you can tell that, I mean, and even in the very beginning, Stamets was not a very nice person,
No,
like
and to
before
her
he became a
especially.
spore Stamets, you know.
Yeah,
Post spore, he kind of became this like, yeah, like groovy, everyone's awesome. But before that, he was kind of a d-bag. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear at all on this podcast, so I'll keep it pretty clean. But
that's
you know,
okay.
he was a jerk, you know,
Yeah,
constantly just snippy with everybody, even Culber. And so, you know, to
yeah.
see him so kind to them. I think their relationship, working and friendship, kind of grew, you know, through his kindness developing, and so you can tell that there is a very deep connection between them, and how desperately she wants him to be able to come back into this, you know, the mirror universe where they are. How desperately she wants to find him and put things right, especially with Culber being the way he is, you know. She
Ah,
realizes that Stamets, I mean, you know, I think that was honestly for me, that was the most heartbreaking part, was when they all think that Stamets killed Culber, not intentionally
I
or
know,
whatever,
right?
but they're like, oh, you know, it's not his fault. Like it's a deeply troubled mind that he has right now. Like, you know, he must have just let the containment field down and he just snapped or something. You know, and it's like, no, it wasn't him.
It was that security douchebag.
I know. Well, that, and I'm like, okay, how many times have we seen people look up like the flight recorder visual, right? Like when Spock and McCoy, you know, in the movies, when they transfer his Katra to McCoy, you know, they can look these things up on camera. Like, what does Discovery like not have cameras? Like, just look it
That's
up
what I
and
was
see what
wondering.
happened.
Yeah, that makes me
So,
mad. Second off, as much as I love him and hope that he comes back somehow, Culber's Culber's lack of self-awareness and situational awareness really bugged me last week. It's like, so you have this guy
oh yeah.
who's showing all these weird random signs of not being who he says he is, and you don't bring security in when you question him about it? like
Yeah, or you know,
put yourself behind a
any
force
number
field.
of like precautionary measures, you know. Oh, we don't
Seriously.
really know what's going on with your personality, but it's okay. You can go and do this really super dangerous mission that kind of hinges on like all of your behavior. You
And
know,
like
I'm like,
and,
who okayed this?
and like did he not leave any logs? I mean, obviously they know who did it now because Burnham, sent him back and told him.
Right, right.
But it's like, ah, man, I want him to come back so bad.
Me
Um,
too. One, just for the representation of a
yeah,
gay couple in Star Trek. I love that. And
yeah.
plus their relationship has such a depth. I mean, we got to see that in the episode um, with Harry Mudd. You know, they keep bringing him back and back and back and back. And he tells the story of how he fell in love, of how Stamets fell in love with Culber, to kind of encourage Michael to reach out to Ash. Um,
Oh yeah.
you know, so I feel like there's so much there. Like, it just can't be the end of him. Like, it just cannot. I would be so heartbroken. I mean, one, it's interesting to see a functional relationship between officers. Not that we didn't already get that. I mean, I think every uh, well, outside of the original series, you know, we got to see couples, kind of, right? We had Riker and Troy. On DS9, we get Jadzia and Worf eventually.
Yeah.
Voyager, you know, you have Seven of Nine. You know, everyone has a trip into Paul in Enterprise. You know, every series has their own couple. And I didn't really want that to be Ash and Burnham. I thought that was kind of too easy almost.
Yep.
Here's this like weird guy who, you know, he was in a Klingon prison cell and everything, and here's this girl who was raised on Vulcan who's super awkward and doesn't like to party or whatever. It just
Yeah.
seemed too contrived. And so I loved that we had this kind of healthy and like functional relationship between Stamets and Culber. So
Yeah.
if they kind of destroy that, I will be very sad.
So what do you think about the Ash Tyler reveal last night where he just outs himself? Not purposefully,
I
but
the way that that happened, I thought they did an incredible job.
same.
Do I like it? I'm still kind of like filtering through it because while I didn't want them to be together, I did want there to be that protection kind of thing, for them to have a bond. I liked that they could, like, I think he described it as being a tether, right? They
Yeah.
kind of held each other in, to what was real to them. Um, and I find, like, I don't know, it's almost like he straight up like abandoned her, right? Like on this mirror ship where
Oh
she's the
yeah.
captain, by his betrayal. It leaves her very vulnerable, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, for real. And then, so I was mad in at the beginning when they're like, "Oh, is this who's this Ash guy? Is he really Vok or not?" And everyone was like, "Oh yeah,
Right.
totally." I mean, I'm thinking to myself, that's way too obvious.
Right.
Like for
Yeah.
the Klingon to disappear, and then the next episode, this random guy in a Klingon prison shows up. Like, but
The thing about that too, that they did so artfully, is that they threw in, and writers do this intentionally. They throw in these tiny little details that make it so believable. And
mm,
so when you have Ash come onto Discovery, and he and Lorca are going through that Klingon program or whatever, and at the end, Lorca is talking to him, saying like, "Yeah, I ran your background. Like, you're not from Seattle. You're from like Issaquah or some like tiny little Washington town that I actually
right,
looked it up and saw if it was like a real town, and it is. So
that's amazing.
either the Klingons have infiltrated Starfleet records, or I mean, I have a lot of questions about that because of how specific they got with that background information.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm assuming Ash Tyler probably was a Starfleet security officer that was taken by the Klingons.
Right. And they kind of, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously they made him look like his old records. I mean, it'd be obvious if he was like a really pasty ginger guy or something like that, and then he turns into this, kind of a more olive skinned, dark haired gentleman.
right.
It wouldn't really work if he didn't look like him. So they had to have gone to great lengths to kind of make that match. And
Yeah,
that's what I find interesting too, is that Culber's like, yeah, usually we see people kind of grafted, under someone else's identity. They've kind of grafted over you.
right.
So they have superimposed this personality and visage of Ash Tyler onto Vogue. Which when and the thing too that was like, oh my gosh, like I was on pins and needles just waiting for it, when they beam down to the planet and Vogue and Ash are in the same room together, and you can hear it in Vogue's voice.
Yeah,
You can hear that it is the same actor as is playing Ash Tyler. And it's like, holy crap, like, is this gonna happen now? Is this gonna happen now? Is it gonna happen now? And you're just on tenterhooks, like waiting for something to just explode. And then you get that epic moment where Vogue starts speaking in Klingon and Ash returns it in Klingon, talking about Kalesh and all that stuff. And so
yeah,
I thought that was so masterfully done. That was excellent. And then you get that epic, like, Batleth fight between them,
yeah. So it was awesome.
where
Well,
they just went crazy.
that was another thing that was really fun. And it's like I was originally upset about how obvious a twist it was, but the way that they've handled it has been very unique in that, like, there was a long period of we're not saying one way or the other, like there's no sign of Volk or the other Klingon woman or anything.
Right.
And then we go from her being captured to him finding out to us finding out to like
Yeah.
to him like being exposed to like in like in the course of like what 3 or 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And like normally like they hang on to stuff like that, but like they're like no
Right.
no we're just he's been found out, and like it's
This
just
is what it is.
it's just
Yeah.
like it's like that stabbing. It's like ripping you from one story and just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
liked
that's
that a
one
lot.
thing that I love about Discovery is they're not afraid to throw in these like total curveballs at you. Just when you think you know something or you understand something, boom, it is something else entirely. And the way that they do it is so like graceful, if I can use that word. It's not like choppy. You're not just like, oh wow, like that came out of left field. No, they're like dropping little hints, like
Yeah,
before they go to the mirror universe, coming back from a jump, Stamets calls Tilly captain, and she's
right.
like, where did that come from? And all of us think, where did that come from? Like, obviously she's a cadet. What are you talking about? And then, we find out that she's the captain of the Discovery. Like, holy crap. So he's
Yeah,
been kind of dabbling in these different universes, whether he knows it or not. And so I'm
so
interested to see what they do with that also.
yeah, before we get to that, I had a real brief thought when I was watching the episode. So it was like security
Yeah.
chief on the Discovery, like the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Like, is it cursed?
So true, right? We have
Because we've
Landry
gone
who
through
dies like
two.
the first tardigrade episode, right? When they have Ripper who like literally rips her apart. Yeah, I mean, gosh, this will be really.
Yeah, they're gonna need another security chief now.
Oh
Like,
my gosh. Yeah, no
man,
kidding. Who'd be good for that though is Saru. Like, throughout the episode, he is the most cautious member of
yeah,
that crew. Everyone else is like, woo, like guns blazing, full steam ahead, like let's do this. And Saru is often the one to say, you know what, like, yeah, like we're a pre-species, us Kelpians, but like maybe someone wants to think a little more carefully about this. And usually, like he tends to be in some way correct about the situation. Maybe you shouldn't have jumped into that. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Okay. And
right.
so he's kind of the barometer of the ship internally somehow. So it would be interesting to see him kind of take up that position. Although I'm not sure if they're going to go that direction. That would just be interesting, I would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's already first officer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes him a great first officer. Um, I actually, I don't know. I don't like the captain, but I'm still trying to figure out what his goals are.
Lorca.
Yeah, because I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
sure that he took them to the mirror universe on purpose.
Well, when we look at I saw this on a Reddit thread actually, as I was kind of going through the episode. Someone posted a picture of that final jump, and he has like manipulated the jump, and it says something like Lorca Zero is the destination, and
Yeah.
it's not what they thought it was going to be. It's certainly, and I think that's part of the reason why things went haywire. With Stamets, I think he was expecting to make a jump somewhere else, and Lorca kind of threw that curveball in there. So, I mean, I don't know how. Obviously the science is not necessarily true science,
Right.
but I don't really understand the even pseudoscience behind the jumps necessarily, how they plot them and plan them. But I would guess that it would be kind of like driving a car and looking at a map to get to your destination. So I think if all of a sudden someone like jerked the wheel, you'd be pretty freaked out, and that might cause some significant injury, right? So
Oh yeah.
I think that's kind of perhaps what happened to Stamets to make him, and holy Gary Mitchell eyes, okay? Like he's got the Gary Mitchell eyes going on from the original series. When Gary goes crazy, he's got these kind of glazed over eyes. And that was one of the creepiest parts of this week's episode and last week's episode, when he becomes, he's in like the spore universe or whatever, and his eyes are that very cloudy color. And
Oh
then
yeah.
all of a sudden he kind of like popped out of it, and his eyes sort of whoosh, they slid back to their normal blue, and he looks up at Culber, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen right now? And then he says something about, don't go into the palace, the enemy is near, or something like that, and then it kind of clouds over again. So I
Yeah.
think
What is that
it's
all about?
interesting. He's able to get these like little moments of clarity, and I haven't been able to discern why or how he's able to do that without the spores being in the room or anything. So I mean, hopefully we get a little more of that science, because we got to understand a bit of it through Tilly this week.
Right.
Her explaining to Saru as she's got him in the jump room, if you will, where he does all of his jumps and things. That kind of contained glass partition that he's in when he does the jumps. And she's explaining the science to Saru as she kind of respores him, for lack of a better word. She connects him to the mycelial network or whatever.
Right.
And I thought that was very interesting too, that we get a little bit of the science behind it. And I love that Tilly is the one doing that, because we get to see her be capable of something, right? Like, we already know she's very smart. We already know she's very innocent, and that she has a lot of drive, and she wants to become a captain. She wants to get into that command program. But we get to see her do something truly worthy of that this week, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Well, I loved her being like demanding of Saru. Like, no, I am the like we're outside of
Yeah.
medical science at this point. Like, I am the most qualified to treat him.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
Mm-hmm.
do this. And then like that was really cool. I like that from her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's kind of, and that's kind of what I mean about them taking on a little bit of their mirror personalities. How Captain Killy, she's kind of demanding, and she is very confident, and she knows what she wants. And I like that we're getting, I know is the perfect nickname. That's just so good. I like that we get to see that from her in little snippets. I mean, she's not overdoing it. It's not too much. I like seeing that from her a lot.
For sure, me too. So I guess we've covered a lot. Oh, so we got to see more aliens this week. We get to see
Yes.
Andorians and Tellarites,
Mm-hmm.
which was
Mm-hmm.
exciting. Andorians look just the same as I would
They
expect.
did. Mm-hmm.
The Tellarites looked awesome, I thought.
Yeah. I love getting to see kind of almost in like uh, previous stages of evolution, right? How the Klingons look so different than we're used to seeing them. I like that the Tellarites look very different. So
Yeah,
I like what they did with that.
yeah, I loved both of them. And the Andorians are underutilized in the later Star Treks, in my opinion.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. We don't get to see a lot of them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like the stocks are too much makeup or whatever
Oh,
cost,
that could be.
but
Yeah,
they're really cool.
they are.
Um, and I loved this is just bouncing from topic to topic at this point, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, when Burnham was trying to understand how these races could work together,
Yeah, that was a very powerful moment.
it was super powerful, and at the same time, it was kind of depressing because if you really listened to what Volk was saying, he had to at some point concede part of what it meant to be Klingon in order
Mm-hmm.
to survive.
Yeah.
Joining together against this outside force situation. Um, Otherwise, you wouldn't have Vulcans and Klingons and Andorians working together.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept that I think actually really applies to today's political climate, which I've
yeah,
always enjoyed that about Star Trek. A lot of it, throughout the ages can apply to cultural and political situations happening in that moment and beyond. There's always like good application of the principles that are applied in Star Trek.
yeah.
Um, and I personally loved that we got to see Sarek.
Oh man,
He is one of my favorite characters. I mean, I love the Vulcans, but he is such a complex character, and I love that we're getting to see a lot of backstory on him throughout Discovery. Lethe was one of my favorite episodes just because there was so much of him in it, and because we got so much of the background between him and Burnham and him and Amanda, and even a little bit, even though it was kind of passive and we never saw him, Burnham and Spock.
mm,
But this week, I found it very interesting that still, I mean, if you think about it, the Vulcans are kind of well, I don't want to say prophets. That's the word that Voq used. He called him Master Sarek and stuff like that. And, he's the prophet who can see all through the mind melds.
right?
Um, but I love that, of the Federation, the Vulcans are often the ones who kind of get the last word on things. Oh, what do the Vulcans think? In Enterprise, it became kind of a joke, like, oh, the Vulcans, like, here they come again. They're going to tell us all what to do. But here in the Mirror universe, they are seen still as very wise, and their word is taken with great value.
Yeah,
So I kind of like to see that carry over. And also thought it was very interesting, Sarek's response to the mind meld with Burnham. he could have been like, what the heck? You know, like,
Right?
what is happening right now? Like, what am I even seeing in your mind? Like, what the, but he kind of played it cool. And each time he just kind of reaffirmed, like, no, her intentions are pure. Like, don't know what's going on with that guy, but I'm telling you the truth. Like, her intentions are pure. She means exactly what she's saying.
Yeah, that was so. First off, I mean, obviously it was useful for the scene, but like, I don't know why you wouldn't, for security purposes, mind meld both of them
Right.
to begin with.
Yeah. Well, and then I wonder what that mind meld would have showed him,
Oh man,
about Tyler slash Vogue. So
yeah.
that would have been really interesting.
And how good must these Klingon, like this Klingon House of Deception or whatever they are, like how good
Oh,
are
I
they? That
mean,
like
that's
his
just
story is so
incredible.
real. Like he remembers so many details.
Well, and the thing too, I mean, until that moment, I think he didn't fully understand like what had happened to him. As often happens to victims of abuse and b victims of like straight up torture. Because
Right.
that's the thing when he goes in and Culber's like, yeah, they have like literally bone crushed you, like they have changed every bit of
Uh,
you, and he's like, yeah, like in my torture, and he's like, no, 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 like there's like stuff here that none of us understand, and I think that you don't remember. And that's when he kind of blows up and ultimately snaps Culber's neck. But
yeah.
he's so convinced, I think, even himself, and he says that later too, like, I didn't know until I heard him speaking, or until Laurel was talking to me and I had to listen to her, because and even Burnham is like, no, it's because you're brainwashed. But he's like, no, it's deeper than that, like it's beyond that.
Yeah.
And I like that he ultimately begins to recognize that in himself. Interesting, because yeah, for so long he's like, well, I mean, I must have just survived. It must be like a strong person, I don't know, like 7 months in a prison, thing with Harry Mudd. I mean, gosh, that must have been hell. That was hell. So he presents himself as this very strong individual, and he even says in Lethe, he's like, I prefer to reserve my judgments and understand people in the here and now. So I feel like he really is trying to either forget about that or kind of move on from it, but it keeps cropping up because they do have such, I mean, there is something underneath that personality that's like clawing its way out.
And I wonder, like, will the old Volk personality completely subsume Tyler, or will some of those real connections that he made continue on?
I think we're going to get to see that, because I don't think your personality can be sublimated, for lack of a better word. I don't think it can be sublimated for that long, and you have this dual personality. I don't think that can completely subside. I think Vogue slash Tyler has a very rocky road in front of him
Yeah, I think so
for
too.
reintegration or understanding of who he is. Like, this is going to mess with his head. Even though he fully understands who he was, we get to also see maybe who he wants to be and where his allegiances fall, and kind of working through, yes, the torture and the changes in his personality. I think we're going to get to see a lot more of that.
Yeah. And who knows how long they're gonna be in the mirror universe? Like they may. I mean, there's no backup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have to make a deal with Volk and is it Laurel? Is that her name?
Laurel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it'll be really interesting to see where they go with all of this.
Yeah, and I have to say, I have never really been a huge fan of the mirror universe. Um, I think it is, you take the most intense and like dark parts of people's personalities in the mirror universe, and for some reason, for me, that's just exhausting, kind of.
Right.
Like, you're not used to seeing people just like cutthroat and like straight up heartless. um and I think that, one, that wears on the viewer, and two, it will really wear on the characters, right? We've already seen Burnham in her voiceover saying, it gets a little easier every day to pass. And at what point will I slip up and make decisions like one of them. um and so part of me also wonders if maybe if they weren't in the mirror universe, if Ash would have stayed Ash Tyler much longer, um, or if it was something in Vogue that brought that out, that underlying personality of prime Voke, for lack of a better word.
Right.
If we didn't see Voke in that encampment as the fire wolf, I think they called him. If we didn't see him, if Ash would have kind of stayed a sleeper cell much longer.
It is interesting, and I loved Burnham's log that like you were talking about. One of the things she said is like the longer you something like the longer you pretend, the more it kills the person you are inside, or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
so intense. Like
That's deep.
as
Yeah.
I can't imagine like I mean with Saru being her slave, like someone she feels like she's already like betrayed, and I think on some level that she loves like as family,
Yeah.
like having to treat him as a slave and let him like
Mm-hmm.
bathe you and clothe you and all this stuff, and like that would be so crazy.
Also, an interesting choice that she chose not to tell Saru that he was on the ship. He asks
Yeah.
her, "Have you seen any Kelpians? Like, there's not that many of us, and I'm just curious." And she's like, "No, I'm really sorry. Like, don't see anybody." Even though Mirror Saru, who is nameless, but she actually bestows his name, quote, as a respected friend, right? I thought
Right.
that was super special. And
Yeah.
ultimately, it's Mirror Saru, who kind of sounds the alarm when Tyler is attacking her.
Oh yeah,
He
he
goes and
pulls them
gets it
off
and
and
says,
everything.
he made an attempt on the captain's life, and that's really what kind of gets things going. So he still plays a very important role, even as a slave. He's still protecting her. It seems like he still cares about her.
Yeah. So two more quick things, and I think we can wrap up for this week.
Yeah.
The first one is how awesome was her plan to get the data back to the Discovery.
Oh, so good. When they pulled that thing off of him, I
Oh,
was like, oh my gosh, that just happened.
like when I saw him getting beamed back, I
Genius.
was like, wait, did she make the Shenzhou like beam him back to her quarters or something? Like what's going on? And then
Yeah,
when he shows up on Discovery, I was like, oh, okay, like she wants to have him tried or whatever. And then he pulls the data card out. I'm
right.
like, what?
Yeah, mind blown.
I was like, that is so good.
Yeah,
Oh man. And then
just genius.
yeah, and then the last part, obviously, the big reveal at the end is the Emperor showing up and laying waste to the
Yeah.
planet
Mm-hmm.
for just an hour's delay, basically. Like that was intense.
Yeah. I mean, we were really get to see the cutthroat ruthlessness of the Terran Empire in
Right.
that moment. And how epic that it's Giorgio.
Oh my
You have
gosh.
an entire universe of people to pick from. As writers, you could create a new character, you could create, anything. You can make it anything, and you choose Burnham's dead captain from the Prime universe. Like,
Oh
oh
man.
my gosh, yeah, just absolutely incredible,
Yeah.
amazing story twist there.
And I love that we get
Um,
to see her back again with him.
yes, I like her character, and so
Yeah.
it's nice to see her back, and interesting to see. In some ways, I didn't see a lot of difference between Giorgio of the Prime universe and Giorgio of the Mirror universe. Um, Not a ton, anyway.
It's true.
I mean, I don't think Prime Giorgio would have like nuked an entire planet based on that. I certainly don't think that. But
Right.
that kind of cold, not cold, but there's like a distance between her and other people that I kind of sensed when she was the captain of the Shenzhou, um, and now as the emperor. She's always a little bit removed. She's not friends with people. She's not, super integrated. I guess she's removed somehow, whether emotionally or physically. It doesn't seem like she's kind of mixed in with anybody else. She's always at the top.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And next week's
Mm-hmm.
episode looks so incredible.
Oh, I know. I
Uh,
love that we get these little previews. I don't remember that being part of many Star Trek series before this, so
yeah,
I
well, I
like
think
that
we
we
just
get
had
to
like a
see
little
this.
tease afterwards, but like in Voyager anyway. But next week on Star Trek Voyager, but it was
Right.
always
Mm-hmm.
like You're like, oh, did they find a way home? And it was always like super
Right.
vague. Like, and I was always the answer was always no, but
Yeah.
until the end anyway. Spoilers. But yeah, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Do we know how many episodes we have left?
That I
Look it
don't
up real
know.
quick.
I know obviously we've started the second half of the first season, and we know that we get a second season. It's been renewed for a second season. It will be interesting to see if they do this mid-season break also. Um, I kind at first I didn't like that. I was like, what do you mean I have to wait a whole month for more Discovery? Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you left us on the biggest cliffhanger in like the face of the universe. What the heck? And I kind of
Seriously.
liked it too. I mean, it's almost like, waiting for Christmas, right? You're like, oh, it's coming. It's so soon. It's going to be so awesome. And then it comes and you're like, wow, this is so great. So that kind of anticipation building almost makes the episodes even better just because you had to wait for them.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I went to to look online. There's 4 episodes left,
Oh, okay.
and so it'll be done mid-February, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
we are very close.
That's wild.
Do you think we'll make it out of the Prime universe before
I hope we make it out of the mirror universe. I
Mirror
think
universe? Yeah.
it would be interesting to see A, how they do that, and B, how they're affected by that. Because presumably they have to almost trade spots, right? So, like, Mirror Discovery could be wreaking like a whole bunch of havoc back in the Prime universe. I
See,
don't I don't know if that works that way though.
I'm not sure. It's ambiguous. I've been reading about that online. That's a really good question. Saru says that like they were here right before and we took their spot, but theoretically that means the other Discovery just left.
Right.
But that
But
doesn't necessarily
where did they go? Like, I have
right.
questions.
That's the thing. It's like, are they floating around in the mirror universe still? Like, will they run into their, other selves, or or did they actually travel? Like, did they trade places?
Yeah, and I think if it's not the we just swapped places option, things can get so muddled in that, well, there's a billion different parallel universes, right? If you think about that,
Right.
every decision that you made, if you made a different decision or hesitated a second longer, it creates another universe. You have just infinite mirror universes out there.
Right.
So I kind of like the we swapped spots. A, because that's going to give us a whole bunch of stuff to like work through later. If anyone
Right.
came across Mirror Discovery or Mirror Shenzhou or anything, or Prime, yeah, well, I guess the Shenzhou didn't make it in there, but if they discover Mirror Discovery in the Prime universe, things are going to get really interesting. And I'm interested also to see how they bring in the Defiant with this. They keep mentioning the Defiant and how it's in the Mirror universe and how it came in there, not with the Spore Drive because the Discovery is the only one with the Black Alert deal. So
Right.
it's going to be interesting for them to. I think we're going to see more about the Defiant and how they came into the Mirror universe, and I think that's going to be their ticket out of there. Because I don't think Stamets is ever going to be in any kind of position to make a full jump again. I think that would
So
not be good.
yeah, for sure. That reminds me of the big end of the episode reveal that we haven't talked about yet. Stamets gets pulled into my seal vision or whatever by his other
Yeah.
self,
Uh-huh.
who's wearing the mirror universe uniform.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Are you ready to get to work?" And I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?"
Oh man, I know, seriously.
Because he
I
doesn't seem like a
just
total jerk necessarily.
no. No, I think, well, and it's hard to tell how. I mean, obviously Stamets' personality was affected by the spores, by the
Right.
jumps. That's a night and day difference.
He entered the shroomverse.
Everyone I know, seriously. He did the shrooms. It made him positive. He became a hippie.
Right.
But the difference is so stark. Like, everyone notices it. They're like, wow, Stamets is like being really nice. That's interesting. Even like his snippiness, like he wasn't just snippy with Tilly and the captain and Burnham, or the Culber and Burnham. He was snippy with the captain too. I'm like, dude, you're like bordering on insubordination here. Like you're gonna get written up or something. And then Lorca kind of lets it slide, which I'm not sure how that. To me, that's not very good leadership. But he seems to run a very interesting ship, so perhaps that was just the dynamic that they had. But
I have so
it
many
will be
thoughts.
interesting. I know, same.
I have
Yeah, I
so
think
many thoughts on Lorca. We could have a whole episode about him, I think.
we totally could. Well, and I honestly, I have a theory in my own mind that Lorca of the Prime universe may actually be Mirror Lorca, if I can throw that out there.
I've
Um,
thought about that too. That's a really fun theory.
it is fun. It makes you really think. So, especially because Mirror Lorca, as we are presented with him, is missing.
Right.
They don't know where he is. He's like a fugitive. So
Well, it reminds me of
that's
that scene with him and the admiral in bed, and she's like, "I don't really know you anymore," or something like that. Like
right.
he's like,
Yeah.
you're so different," or whatever.
Well, and he's so paranoid. We get to see also, everyone's like, well, it's his PTSD from the Klingon ship. Like
Right.
I mean, I don't know if it ever told us how long he was there. If it was
Yeah.
like weeks or months. I know he was gone for a little bit, but and any time spent in enemy territory in a prison camp where you're literally being tortured, that's going to have an effect on you. But his paranoia is so extreme that he's literally carrying a phaser in his waistband on his own ship. To me that like reeks of
Right.
mirror universe stuff. Who's going to jump me? Am I safe? I'm not safe at all ever. I can't trust anybody. you know, got to look out for me. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think it will be interesting for them to explore that too. Or if we ever find Mirror Lorca, then that would kind of
Nice.
clear that up. But we'll see.
I'm so excited.
I know this series. I was not old enough to watch DS9 or TNG or TOS on TV. I got to see Voyager in Syndicate and Enterprise. I remember when Enterprise was on television. But this is like so huge. Getting to see it from week to week
Yes.
is so awesome. Like I love that. Not that I don't love binge watching Trek on Netflix or anything. Like thank you Netflix for putting that up there. Just a shout out. But yeah, getting to see it week by week, just that anticipation and that suspense is so delicious.
Especially how well written it is. Like
It's
it just keep
amazing.
like amping up the tension and the craziness and the
Mm-hmm.
it's so
Well,
good.
yeah, and so many haters online just, oh, I
Um,
gotta pay for I gotta pay CBS to watch this, and I'm like, yeah, for the price of a cup of coffee from Starbucks, like totally worth it.
right?
I don't mind giving them, I have the commercial version, so it shows like two commercials inside the episode, which kind of almost feels like TV to me. So like I kind of don't mind it. It doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like $6 a month. Like, okay, I'll pay that so that I can watch them at any time. I don't have to wait for them to be on TV. Like they're all there. I can watch them at any time.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what I
so
recommend it to some people. Like if you're really super strapped, like you really, but you do want to support it at some level, just wait till, like in this case, it'll be February. Wait till February, pay one
yeah.
time, binge
Mm-hmm.
all of them, and then subscribe.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I would even say like make sure you do that all, and then like keep it for, if you plan it right. If I think you get like a 7-day trial or a month trial or something like that.
Oh yeah,
So if you plan it right, you can have your trial end after the final episode, so you can watch all the episodes, watch the finale, and then like your trial membership is done or whatever. But I'm going to keep mine in between the seasons just so I can watch it more and kind of absorb more, because I feel like every time I watch it, I see something new, which is really cool.
yeah. Well, then yeah, everything is so interconnected, and you can tell that a lot of this is very well planned,
Yeah,
and that they've thrown in little hints. I can't wait to watch this again and see all the Easter eggs that they threw in from the beginning.
same, same. Well, and even recognizing from like, ooh, that happened last week, which tied into this week. Like, holy crap! Like this is so cool. Like even the Tyler Voke theory. I mean, that became so strong last week when Laurel is having that like Klingon, language conversation with him where she's like, I don't know, like the prayer isn't working. Like you have
Right.
another name. Like, why don't you remember it? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what did you do to me? There's like this desperation to it, that's kind of building into this crescendo, which really reaches like peak momentum this week as that huge reveal is given to us. But yeah, just so masterful. It's so amazing. It's so good.
Couldn't agree more. So I think this is where we will leave it for this week. I think this was a
Yeah.
very successful first run.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Annie, for joining me.
Of course.
And I'd like to invite everyone to, like I said earlier, keep an eye on our feed and website and everything, and look forward to future episodes of Brief Trek, or of a different name if we decide to go something else.
I like the brief trek. This is good.
Okay, Brief Trek it is. It has been
All
spoken.
right.
So thanks again for joining us. Look forward to a new episode of the regular Brief Nerdity podcast next week, and a new episode of Brief Trek sometime this coming week as well. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody have a good night. Bye bye.
Live long and prosper.
Yes.